Assalamualaikum and greetings to my fellow lecturers and friends. We are from Group 5 and will be sharing with all of you Vadadustat, which is a new drug in the market. My name is Rizal and with me I have Shafika. Here are the contents we will be discussing today. For some background, Vadadustat is a prolyl hydroxylase domain inhibitor that treats anemia in chronic kidney disease patients. Its functions are to stabilize cellular hypoxia-induced factor HIF level, stimulate response to hypoxia, and increase production of endogenous erythropoietin, EPO. It can cause side effects such as hepatotoxicity and others that will be further elaborated later on. For dosing, it should be taken once daily at 300 mg. Moving on to how the drug was discovered, it was initially synthesized and micronized by Evonik Corporation. The chemical identity and purity of Vadadustat were confirmed through infrared spectroscopy, X-ray powder diffraction, NMR, and HPLC. After that, Vadadustat was further developed by Akebia Therapeutics. As of 27th of March 2024, Vadadustat has been approved by the FDA. As previously mentioned, Vadadustat is an inhibitor of PHD, which will subsequently lead to higher HIF activity. In this table, we can see Vadadustat targets and inhibits all three isoforms of PHD. To get into the mechanism of action, HIF is a transcription factor that will bind to the specific gene to increase EPO production. However, the presence of PHD will prevent this and cause it to degrade. In normoxic conditions, PHD will bind to HIF and cause it to undergo proteasomal degradation. Thus, the required gene can't be activated, and this will inherently prevent EPO production and will lead to anemia. By taking Vadadustat, here we can see that it will inhibit PHD. This will prevent PHD from causing HIF to be degraded, and this can activate the required gene to increase EPO production to help with anemia. Vadadustat will bind to PHD and will also stabilize HIF. For the animal studies, it was conducted first on a healthy model where they gave the rats a single oral dose of 50 or 150 mg per kilogram of the medication. After a certain period of time shown here, 2 ml blood sample was taken and analyzed, and they found that there is an increase in serum EPO 3 hours post-dose, which peaked 6 hours post-dose. The second one was done on rats that underwent 5 out of 6 nephrectomy. The nephrectomy was done by ligation, and 1 week after that, the contralateral right kidney was also removed. 6 weeks post-surgery, rats were given OD 30 or 90 mg per kilogram Vadadustat for 14 days. Blood samples were taken on day 0 and day 14, and it showed an increase in hemoglobin, hematocrit, reticulocyte count, and red blood cell distribution width.
Now, moving on to the clinical trials of Vadadustat. In phase 1, it was conducted to evaluate safety, tolerability, pharmacodynamics, and pharmacokinetics of Vadadustat. After the study, a few key findings were observed, such as dose-responsive increases in reticulocytes and mean serum EPO levels increased over the baseline at 16 hours. Other than that, this study also reported a very mild to moderate diarrhea and no serious adverse effects or death. The researcher proceeded to conduct phase 2. In this study, they conducted 2 phase 2 multi-center, double-blind placebo-controlled studies in Japanese patients with non-dialysis dependent or dialysis dependent CKD-induced anemia to once daily Vadadustat or placebo. In this study, there was a significant dose-dependent increase in mean hemoglobin in each Vadadustat treatment group versus placebo. In terms of safety in the NDD population, it was observed that the most common adverse effects during the primary efficacy period were hypertension and nausea, whereas during the dose adjustment and maintenance period, constipation was reported, and there were no serious adverse effects and death. It was a bit different in the dialysis-dependent population, whereby during the primary efficacy period, the most common adverse effects were nasopharyngitis and diarrhea, whereas during the dose adjustment and maintenance period, nasopharyngitis and headache were reported. Next is the phase 3. In this study, 2 randomized open-label non-inferiority phase 3 trials were conducted to evaluate the safety and efficacy of Vadadustat as compared with the dabipoetin alpha in patients with anemia. As for the findings, it can be concluded that in Japanese patients with NDD-CKD, Vadadustat was non-inferior to dabipoetin alpha, was effective up to week 52 in terms of average hemoglobin, and was well tolerated. This study also observed the most frequent adverse effects, which were nasopharyngitis, diarrhea, and constipation. On 27 of May 2024, FDA has approved Vadadustat tablet for the treatment of anemia due to the chronic kidney disease in adults who have been receiving dialysis for at least 3 months, and this drug will be available under the brand name Vafseo. Vafseo is currently approved in 37 countries, and as in Japan, Vadadustat is approved as a treatment for anemia due to the CKD in both dialysis-dependent and non-dialysis-dependent patients. As for the pharmacovigilance, there was a box warning mentioning about the possible adverse effects such as increased risk of thrombotic vascular event and major adverse cardiovascular event. Other than that, hepatotoxicity, seizures, gastric or esophageal erosions, and gastrointestinal bleeding have been reported as well. Here are the references, and that is all from us. Thank you.